What's up guys, Carmine here, back again with another non-spoiler review video, this time covering House of the Dragons Episode 9, and as always, shout out to the Cartoon Network for providing a review copy. You guys are awesome. Now, as some of you know, in Game of Thrones tradition, the second to last episode is considered the dreaded episode, and this is something I've referred to it as for years, even before I started my channel, and in this, there wasn't really much to dread, other than, losing one of the best character performances the series has given us, but that aside, the only thing we're given here is the uh-oh factor that we knew was coming. The Hightowers would be pulling some shady BS to take the throne from Rhaenyra. But other than that, there isn't any gut punches to expect like we're so used to from Thrones tradition of the penultimate episode. You could argue that maybe Ryan Condal wanted to do his own thing and not follow in Dave and Dan's tradition, but at the same time, even if he wanted to do it, it's still kind of hard to do that here, especially with this part of the source material. Let's get into it. Before that, this video was brought to you by Established Titles. If you're watching this, then chances are you like Game of Thrones and you've probably heard the characters call each other lords and ladies 1,000 times already. Well, now's your chance to be one yourself. With Established Titles, you can buy 1 square foot plot of land over in Scotland, and once you do, they'll send you an official certificate with a crest and plot number to see the exact location of your land, and with this, you could officially change your title to Laird, Lord, or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, and even that spicy Tinder profile. You can even get one for your pets like I did, and now she is officially a lady. But that's not all, because Established Titles plants a tree with every order and works with global charities such as One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. And the really cool thing about all of this is that it makes for an excellent gift for that Game of Thrones fan in your life. Seriously, it'd be a great gift for your wife or your wife's husband or even your wife's husband's boyfriend. So head on over to the description below and click my special link or use my code RedTeam to get 10% off your official title today. And you better hurry because the first 200 people to use my link will get a plot of land right next to mine so we can be land buddies together. So head on over to the description below and click my special link or use my code RedTeam to get 10% off your official title today. Once again, that's establishedtitles.com/RedTeam or use my code RedTeam to get an additional 10% off your official title today. And thank you to them for sponsoring this video. So, as always, I have to answer, did I enjoy this episode? Yes. Was this the best episode we've gotten so far? No. But there are some really interesting things that happen in this that I would say would put this episode into people's top 3 of the season. Episode 8 had a lot of great moments for almost every single main character. But here, it feels like this is the second course to an already fantastic meal. It's not better, but it's just as good. One thing I will say is that the mood is entirely different after King Viserys' death, and we saw a bit of this in the last episode when Rhaenyra comes to the Red Keep, and it literally continues here, which I really like. It set the tone very nicely for a good chunk of the episode. The other thing about the episode that I enjoyed, and the show in general so far, is the differences in personality to characters in comparison to the book, specifically with Alicent. In the source material, she is rumored to have poisoned the king's wine to hurry him to death and even instructed the guards and servants on what was to happen once the king did die. Here, she is less evil stepmother and more misguided parent, which I appreciate. I'm sure people will argue that she heard whatever it is she wanted to hear, but the way it's played off in this episode was done very nicely. Personally, I think one of the best scenes in the episode is the small council meeting, and we get a small taste of that in the preview, and yes, exactly what you think happens does happen with Beesbury, and it's done very well, though there are some smaller changes here. If you saw the preview, you'll see that Lord Commander Harold Westerling is present when he shouldn't be, among other minor differences which I'll discuss in the spoiler review. But this scene came off as one of my favorites for the entire episode, possibly the whole series, mostly because of the small lore tidbits we get during it. Very well done. And the one character I would say stood out was Alicent's son Aegon. I know everyone has a boner for Aemon, and while he's cool in this episode, I feel like Aemon's purpose is just to be a Final Fantasy antagonist and just stand around looking pretty. And I can't shake the feeling that the showrunners just made him a younger Daemon clone, and you'll see what I mean in this episode, you kind of already saw it in the previews, but they really need to set him aside from that, especially in Season 2. But Aegon's conflicting feelings on the whole situation to crown him king was a surprise highlight for me. Once again, I know people want to clown on him and call him the Joffrey of the series, but he's more Draco Malfoy than anything, especially in the later Harry Potter films, which I appreciate. But at the same time, some of the crap that Aegon does and has done, and we'll see that in this episode, will make a lot of people dislike the character and the Greens in general. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd say this episode was written by a Rhaenyra fan with how bad the Greens come away in the end. But as always, I can't go into too much detail without spoiling the whole thing, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. The best parts being the small council stuff and the Aegon coronation scene, which which, in my opinion, was very, very, very well done. In fact, I think it's one of the first few times we've ever seen a coronation for a king in the entire series. In Game of Thrones, I don't think we saw Joffrey being crowned, nor Tommen, nor any of the participants in the War of Five Kings. I think the only person we see have a crown placed on their head is Euron, and even then it was a cool ceremony bogged down by bad writing. But yeah, in the end, this episode was pretty great, and if you're wondering if there's anything in it that I didn't like, it's kind of the same situation with episode 8. Anything I disliked was so minor and minuscule that it's not even worth mentioning, but there was one character that I found kind of pointless, despite the fact that they have a big storyline in later seasons. I don't know if I can name them since I don't think they were in the preview, but I found myself questioning why the hell they were even included in the episode at all. You could argue to set up motivations for, like, future seasons, sure, but it still felt pretty pointless to have them in here. I guess you kind of have to give them something to do after they're in the promotional posters, but still felt pretty pointless. And of course, before we wrap things up, I did want to discuss the upcoming conflict between both factions in the show and how it relates to us as viewers picking sides. So someone on Discord sent me this YouTube comment from Peter Haynes, and it reads, "I have always said the difference between Team Black and Team Green is that George R. R. Martin is slapping us in the face with deliberate values dissonance. The facts are that by Westerosi standards, Team Green is right, but their arguments repulse modern Westerners. They are essentially boys come first and Rhaenyra's children are bastards. Both are absolutely valid points in Westeros, but modern readers aren't scared of female rulers and aren't bothered by female promiscuity. So we support Team Black. We perceive them as fighting for our quote-unquote values. In reality, Daemon and Rhaenyra are just fighting for themselves." Now, Peter makes a very good point about how the Westerosi view it versus how we view it, but at the same time, so many complications come into play, specifically with the law. In the Ice and Fire book series, Stannis believes that Rhaenyra is a traitor and that she should have sided with her brother Aegon as dictated by law, that being that males inherit regardless, and that would be true of the Andals and First Men, but the Rhoynar, the people of Dorne, do things differently. So how come the Valyrians can't do the same? Jaehaerys I pretty much settled this before Viserys' ascension to king when he established the doctrine of exceptionalism, which allowed the Targaryens to continue the practice of incest without the country's religious powers getting angry over it. But it also laid out that because Targaryens are Valyrians and not from Andalos, where the Andals come from, there were different laws and traditions that they held to, which could include that of naming your heir. It's not unheard of, and as we've seen from the Rhoynar and Dorne, it's essentially established law, kind of, that Targaryens are above certain customs of Westeros. The other problem here is the oaths of every lord taken under this promise to swear to Rhaenyra as their heir to the throne, and this will actually come up in episode 9. But what is your honor, your duty to uphold oaths taken, even that of your fathers, versus the law? Funny enough, this is also something that Stannis goes against during Robert's rebellion. By law, he should have held true to his king, but instead he rose up in rebellion alongside his brother Robert. So in the end, what comes first? Your oath to uphold your word and allegiance, or the law, flawed as it is? And finally, to Peter's point, maybe Daemon is doing it for himself, and maybe Rhaenyra was in the original source material, but here, Ryan Condal has changed the characters quite a bit to make them more sympathetic, specifically with Rhaenyra and the dagger prophecy. It adds more urgency to her inheritance, though you could argue, why can't she just tell her brother Aegon about the dagger's importance? Well, can you really trust someone who'd usurp your inheritance to stay true to their word on anything? Even something as important as this? It really does come down to trust at the end of the day. How can you trust someone to hold true to their word when all they've ever done is some shady BS and scheming behind the scenes? But I'll let you guys argue that one out in the comments below. But personally, I like James's take on the matter, saying that Rhaenyra is better than all of them because the amount of evil she's done is considerably less than anyone else. And my man here, props to him, he's truly figured out the series in one sentence. Bravo, brother. Bravo. But guys, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please leave your thoughts down below and be sure to come back here to tell me what you thought of the episode when it airs. I may feature it in my next video. Also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. It helps out a lot. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.